Late in the summer of 1935, the Sapphire Lounge was thick with the scent of expensive perfume masking the sharp smell of sweat. It was July 12th, and the room was bursting with over 100 people. Everyone was drenched in perspiration despite their fancy clothes, while an old jazz record looped endlessly in the background. The music was scratchy and broken, yet the liquor didn't stop pouring. Wealthy visitors from the suburbs stayed wide-eyed on cheap stimulants, acting like they were tough enough for the uptown streets after dark. Bumpy Johnson was positioned at a corner booth with his eyes on the entrance. In his line of work, staying alert was the only reason he had survived into his 30s. He was sipping on a rare imported whiskey delivered by a local named Leo. Years ago, Bumpy had saved Leo from a group of thugs trying to take over his shop, and now Leo showed his thanks with high-end booze and absolute loyalty. Bumpy valued a man who could keep his mouth shut just as much as he valued a good drink. Shortly before the clock struck 12, the rear entrance swung open. In walked a brute named Silas Vance. He acted like he was the king of the city. Vance was a debt collector for a big-time mobster named the Butcher, and he was known for using a heavy lead pipe to shatter the legs of anyone who owed money. He was dressed in an expensive charcoal suit and boots so shiny they looked like mirrors. His hands were massive and covered in old scars from countless street fights. Without a word of greeting or a hint of respect, he marched straight over to Bumpy, the man who ran every illegal lottery in the entire district. Vance's right hand whipped out in a blur, slapping Bumpy's face with a sound so loud it drowned out the music. Every conversation in the Sapphire Lounge stopped instantly. The strike jerked Bumpy's head to the side, leaving a red mark on his skin that would surely turn into a dark bruise by morning. Inside his mouth, his teeth sliced his cheek, and he could taste the metallic tang of blood. His drink rattled on the table but didn't tip over. Bumpy didn't move his right hand. He slowly flexed his jaw to check for damage, then turned his gaze back to Vance. His expression was as cold and vacant as a tombstone. Vance stood there, braced for a fight. He expected Bumpy to jump up, flip the table, and pull out the revolver he kept hidden under his coat. He was ready for a chaotic brawl that would end up on the front page of the newspapers. But Bumpy didn't fight. Instead, he calmly picked up his glass with his left hand and took a slow drink, acting as if he were relaxing at home by himself. The silence in the club was terrifying. It was the kind of quiet that happens when a crowd realizes they are watching a man decide exactly how he is going to destroy his enemy. A few feet away, a woman named Queenie, who managed the local gambling rings, glanced up from her paperwork. She saw the look in Bumpy's eyes and immediately looked back down. She knew that Bumpy wasn't being a coward, he was calculating a death sentence. Vance's smug look began to fade. He had come looking for a loud, messy argument to prove his dominance. The total lack of a reaction scared him. It meant that the payback wasn't going to be quick or simple, it was going to be precise and devastating. He swallowed hard, unable to find anything to say. Terrified by the stillness, he began to back away, heading toward the exit without looking back. Vance realized in that moment he had just volunteered to be the gruesome lesson that would keep the rest of the city in line. Bumpy placed his glass back down, fitting it perfectly into the damp circle on the cloth. He gave a tiny tilt of his head, a gesture so slight it was almost invisible, yet Vance felt the message deep in his bones. You have traded a quick end for a death that will last hours. When they eventually discover your remains in the outskirts of the city, there won't be enough left for a funeral. Vance scrambled out the exit into the humid night, hurrying toward a getaway car that couldn't protect him and toward a future he would never see. He spent his final 47 minutes clinging to the delusion that he could outrun a fate that was already sealed. Bumpy rose from his seat with calm grace, smoothing out his coat where Vance had brushed against him. He strolled toward the private office in the rear. He walked past dozens of men who had just watched him take a blow without blinking, and the message was received loud and clear. A man who stays calm after such an insult isn't a coward, he is a predator. He is the type of person who would level an entire neighborhood just to prove that his respect is non-negotiable. Inside the office, Queenie didn't even look up from her books. You're going to make it hurt, she stated. It wasn't a question. Bumpy gave a single, firm nod. I'm going to make his end so loud and so long that the butcher will hear the screams all the way downtown. He needs to learn that our streets aren't for the taking." Queenie returned to her accounting. Bumpy took a seat and began dialing the rotary phone, triggering a chain reaction across the city. He called in every favor and every debt, reaching out to men who knew that tonight, their loyalty would be paid for in blood and fire. The clock over the bar showed only a few minutes left in the day. Within the hour, Vance's confidence would shatter. By dawn, he would be nothing but a memory. And within a week, the butcher would realize that some provocations come with a price tag no mobster can afford. In the main room, the Sapphire Lounge tried to return to its usual rhythm. Drinks were poured and the record player was fixed, but the atmosphere had shifted forever. Everyone there knew they had just seen the spark that would ignite a massive gang war. Bumpy Johnson had been struck in public, and his quiet response wasn't an act of mercy. It was a vow written in the violence that was about to wash over the city. 3 days prior to the incident at the Sapphire Lounge, the neighborhood relied on a hidden economy that kept thousands of families afloat when traditional banks turned them away. The illegal lottery wasn't just a game of chance, it was a lifeline. A local cook could wager 5 cents on a Tuesday and walk away with several dollars by the weekend, enough to keep the lights on and the pantry full. Queenie governed this empire with a sharp mind and record books that were far more accurate than any official institution. She was a self-made woman in her 40s who had carved out a kingdom through sheer grit and a reputation for lethal discipline. Bumpy was her primary strategist and protector. He wasn't just a hired hand, he was a master of chess in a world of checkers, staying 3 steps ahead of both the police and rival gangs. Everything changed when a ruthless mobster known as the Butcher decided he wanted a piece of the action. The Butcher was a man who preferred chaos over quiet business, making his fortune in illegal spirits while leaving a trail of bodies in his wake. He viewed the local neighborhood as a gold mine waiting to be plundered. On a Tuesday morning, the Butcher sent a dozen of his most violent men into the area. They fanned out in small groups, visiting gambling dens and storefronts with a simple, terrifying ultimatum. This territory belongs to the Butcher now. Pay up or watch your business burn. They arrived armed with gasoline, revolvers, and heavy clubs that had seen plenty of use. At a local barbershop, they cornered a young messenger named Marcus. He was only 19 and had been loyal to Queenie for years, using his pay to support his mother. One of the Butcher's thugs pressed a cold gun barrel against Marcus's head and demanded the day's earnings. Marcus handed over the money, shaking with such terror that he spent the rest of the afternoon sick in the street, knowing the penalty for losing Queenie's cash was usually death. Over the next 2 days, the invaders struck nearly 20 locations. They stole thousands of dollars, used a heavy pipe to snap a worker's limb, and torched a small market. The local police captain, who was receiving a monthly bribe from the Butcher, looked the other way. Bumpy sat in Queenie's private office, calmly documenting every detail in a leather-bound journal. Queenie was pacing like a caged tiger, chain-smoking and demanding immediate retaliation. "We need to strike back now," she snapped, her eyes burning with fury. "We need to show them that they can't just walk in here and take what's ours." Bumpy didn't look up from his notes. His voice remained cold and steady. "And then what happens? He sends more men tomorrow. He brings in his allies from the downtown syndicates. If we rush in, we'll be fighting a war we can't win on every corner at once." "So you're saying we do nothing?" she challenged. Queenie froze, her eyes locked on him. "So we just stand by while he dismantles everything we've worked for?" Bumpy snapped his journal shut. His gaze was heavy, the look of a man who had seen too many lives extinguished. "We let him believe he's the victor. We let him get settled and arrogant. We let him fantasize that these streets belong to him. And then," he paused, "we show him that grabbing power is easy, but holding onto it is impossible." "That's just talk," she countered. "I need a plan, not a sermon." Bumpy stood up and moved to the glass, peering down at the bustling boulevard. "The plan is restraint. The Butcher thinks brute force and fire are the only languages people speak, because that's how he rules his own turf. But he doesn't realize this neighborhood has a soul and its own set of laws. Once he violates enough of those unwritten rules, the heavy hitters will handle the problem for us. Queenie took a long drag of her cigarette, the smoke curling around her face. You're betting on the downtown syndicates. Bumpy gave a slow nod. Luciano hates a mess. He hates unwanted police eyes, and he especially hates reckless goons starting a riot in areas where his money is made. The butcher is being loud, messy, and foolish. Eventually, the commission will decide he's a liability that needs to be removed. And if they stay out of it, she pushed. Bumpy turned, a cold, humorless grin touching his lips. Then we handle the executions ourselves. But we'll be surgical. We'll do it so perfectly that when it's over, the police won't have a lead, and our empire will still be standing. For the next 72 hours, Bumpy seemed idle to the outside world. But in the shadows, he was working tirelessly. He had scouts trailing every one of the butcher's men, recording their favorite haunts, the homes of their mistresses, and the exact roads they used to leave the city. In his private flat, a detailed map of the district was pinned to his table. Black pins marked the crime scenes, and scarlet string connected them like a spiderweb. He kept a separate ledger filled with personal intel, not just the names of the hitters, but where they ate, where they kept their vehicles, and the names of the people they loved. Late on the third night, Queenie let herself into his apartment. She found him hunched over the map at 2 a.m. She poured a stiff drink and sighed. They raided 6 more spots today. Stole $5,000 and shattered a man's face with a wrench because he hesitated to pay their tax. Bumpy's finger followed a line of red string on the map, tracing the path from the outskirts into the heart of his territory. Excellent. Let them grab the cash. Let them break every bone they want. Every cent they steal is a piece of evidence, Bumpy said. Every injury they inflict creates a new witness. When the moment strikes, we'll turn all of it against them. They aren't bright enough to see the cage closing. Queenie set her glass down hard. It sounds like you're rooting for them. Bumpy looked up, his eyes piercing. I want them to feel invincible. I want them to get lazy. I want them convinced that this neighborhood has surrendered without a struggle. That's when men like the butcher get sloppy. Mistakes are exactly what I've been waiting for since their first man stepped onto our pavement. And if they stay sharp? Queenie challenged. Bumpy turned back to his map, shifting a pin and tightening a string. Then we create the errors for them. We'll offer them opportunities, and lay traps that look like easy wins. When they walk in, thinking they've conquered another block, the door will slam shut behind them. How much longer? She asked, glancing at the clock. It was 2 in the morning. Not much longer, Bumpy replied. The butcher is getting cozy. His crew is getting careless. Soon, someone is going to do something so idly cruel and public that we'll have our opening. Queenie lit a fresh cigarette. What exactly are you looking for? Bumpy's smile was thin and cold, never reaching his eyes. A public insult. Something loud. The kind of moment where they think they can lay hands on us and just walk away. It will give us the moral permission to do what we've already planned, and everyone watching will understand exactly why they had to die. Queenie watched him for a long beat. You've had this ready the whole time. Bumpy gave a slow nod. From day one. I've been assembling this piece by piece, mapping every name and every hideout. I just needed the spark to light the fuse. The butcher will give it to me. Men like him can't help themselves. 3 days later, Silas Vance walked into the Sapphire Lounge and struck Bumpy Johnson in front of 200 people. The spark had landed. The inferno was ready to roar. Deep down, Bumpy was satisfied. Vance had just sealed his own fate without realizing it. The clock began its final 47-minute countdown. The neighborhood was about to find out what happened when you violated the sacred code of the streets. True strength isn't about who hits first, it's about who is still breathing once the smoke clears and the world needs a new leader. Vance stepped out of the lounge at 9 minutes to midnight, only to hear the heavy click of the door locking behind him. His car was parked 3 blocks away, a dark sedan that should have been a quick getaway. Instead, he stood on the sidewalk, watching his path to safety vanish as shadows began to move in the darkness. Half a dozen men appeared on the pavement between Vance and his vehicle. They didn't brandish blades or scream insults. They simply stood there, casually lighting cigarettes, occupying the exact path he needed to take. When Vance stepped into the gutter to bypass them, a freight truck rumbled up and lurched to a halt, its engine humming as it barricaded the street. Vance's fingers began to tremble. He spun around, attempting to head toward the next avenue, but more figures emerged. Small clusters of men on every street corner. No one stared at him, yet everyone was tracking his every step like a pack of predators closing in. Back in the private office, Bumpy lifted the receiver and dialed the butcher's direct line. It rang several times before a voice like grinding stones answered. "You calling about Silas?" Bumpy's tone was icy and level. "I'm giving you a way out. Your soldier struck me in front of 200 people. Now, those people are waiting to see the fallout. Get on with it," the butcher growled. Bumpy leaned back, his eyes cold. "Order your man back inside. Have him beg for forgiveness in front of the crowd, then withdraw every one of your thugs from this neighborhood forever. If you do that, Silas leaves here in one piece." The butcher let out a sharp, nasty laugh. "And if I tell you to rot?" Bumpy looked through the glass, watching Vance paced nervously on the corner, hemmed in on all sides. "Then your man never takes another breath. We'll leave him in a gutter with his throat carved open, and when you send 20 more hitters tomorrow, I'll return them all in crates. You have half an hour to decide." The line stayed open, heavy with silence as the butcher weighed the cost of his ego against his man's life. Bumpy sat patiently, knowing this answer would dictate exactly how Silas Vance would meet his end. Finally, the butcher spoke. "You think a local gambler can give orders to me? This city belongs to me. If Silas had a bad night, that's on him." "So that's your final word?" Bumpy asked. The butcher's voice was thick with rage. "My word is this: do whatever you want to Silas. Tomorrow, I'm sending 50 men to level your streets. We'll burn every betting parlor, every club, and every building where you do business until there's nothing left but ash." Bumpy gripped the phone until his knuckles turned ghostly white. "Then we're clear. You picked your vanity over your friend. Now you'll find out just how expensive that choice really is." He ended the call before the butcher could get another word in. Queenie turned away from the glass, her face tight. "He refused." Bumpy gave a short nod. "His ego is bigger than his brain. He thinks sacrificing Silas is a bargain compared to showing me an ounce of respect." He immediately picked up the receiver again and punched in a new set of numbers. A man answered instantly. "It's time," Bumpy said. "The one standing outside the lounge. Grab him. Move him to the storage facility on Miller Road. Don't lay a finger on him yet. Just get him inside and wait for my arrival." He looked at Queenie. "Get a hold of Leo and Big Al. Have the vehicle ready at the rear exit in 20 minutes. "What's the plan?" she asked. Bumpy fastened his blazer and did a quick check of the revolver tucked under his arm. "I'm going to show the butcher the consequences of making the wrong decision. By the time they discover what's left of Silas Vance, the message will be so loud that even a man as dense as the butcher won't be able to ignore it." Outside on the pavement, Silas Vance attempted to bolt toward the river, but he only made it a few yards before 3 figures stepped out from a dark alcove to bar his way. He spun around and sprinted the opposite way, only to find 4 more men waiting in the shadows. Panic took over. He yanked his handgun from its holster, gripping it with shaking hands, and shrieked at them to stay back. No one moved. No one said a word. They simply stood there, staring at him as if he were already a ghost. Vance fired 2 rounds into the sky. The cracks of the gunfire bounced off the brick buildings, but the neighborhood remained silent. No lights flickered on, no sirens wailed in the distance. No one was coming to save him. The men didn't even blink. Vance fired again, aiming at the nearest figure. But his aim was wild because he was shivering with fright. The hammer clicked on an empty chamber. In a fit of desperation, Vance hurled the useless weapon at them and ran blindly, slamming into the side of a stationary vehicle. The impact snapped his ribs and stole his breath, sending him collapsing onto the hard ground. 3 men approached him with the steady pace of professional executioners. One of them looked down at him and spoke calmly. "Mr. Johnson would like a word. You can walk to the vehicle on your own, or we can haul you there like a sack of coal. It's up to you." Vance tried to push himself up, but his knees buckled. 2 men snatched him by the elbows, hoisting him up effortlessly, and marched him toward a dark sedan waiting at the corner with its lights extinguished. They shoved him into the rear seat between 2 enforcers who carried the sharp scent of tobacco and CLP. The sedan glided away, cutting through the dark streets toward an isolated industrial zone where the windows were coated in black paint. In that desolate stretch of the city, the closest neighbor was blocks away. A man could scream until his lungs gave out, and the only thing that would answer would be the silence of the brick walls. Inside the structure, the air was cold and smelled of damp stone. A single wooden chair was bolted firmly to the concrete floor, positioned directly over a rusted floor drain, a grim feature that had seen its share of heavy use. Silas Vance was shoved into that chair, where he would spend the next 8 hours discovering the true price of laying a hand on the wrong man in a neighborhood that didn't belong to him. Exactly 47 minutes after the slap echoed through the Sapphire Lounge, the butcher's arrogance had effectively signed his soldier's death warrant. But the fallout wouldn't stop with Silas. By the end of the month, that single choice would cost the downtown mob millions in property, dozens of men, and the very respect they had tried to steal. In the empire Bumpy Johnson maintained, there was no such thing as a passive gesture. To Bumpy, silence was a calculated weapon, and restraint was merely the precursor to a storm. He understood a truth that few street thugs ever learned. Real authority isn't about making a loud threat or waving a gun in a crowded room. True power is found in the ability to create a terrifying example, one that stays whispered in the ears of every rival long after the echoes of the screaming have faded into the night. The old storage facility on Miller Road had been abandoned for years, a hollow shell of a failed business. But on this night, it served a new purpose. It became a classroom where the city's most dangerous men learned that in Harlem, Bumpy Johnson didn't just follow the rules, he wrote them in blood. Subscribe for more legendary street stories. What do you think? Was Bumpy's patience a sign of power, or was he too cold? Drop a comment below. Don't miss the next one. Subscribe now.